In today's Warcrow topic, we are going to be talking about the Orc Hunters, who are part of the Northern Tribes faction in Warcrow. So, orcs within their culture start off as fighters when they're around 10 years old. These young orcs are known as cubs, and they use bows and arrows to hunt. And this group of cubs are often watched over by an orc veteran known as an impaler. Eventually, once the cubs get old enough, they become known as Firstbloods, and Firstbloods are allowed to hunt with javelins and spears. I don't really know when the next transition is, but at some point, these Firstbloods will become or do become Orc Hunters. And this is primarily going to be when they show that they are, one, old enough, but also when they are seen as fierce fighters as well as cunning and intelligent combatants. And so once they kind of show these qualities, they are allowed to wield melee weapons. And you may have noticed, right, the cubs start off with bows and arrows. The Firstbloods get like javelins and spears, and then finally the orc warriors get melee weapons. And this is because within orc culture, melee weapons allow a warrior to smell the scent of their prey's blood. And orcs see themselves as predators. So orcs value proximity, physical proximity to their foe, to their quarry, to their prey when they are killing. This is why the more experienced an orc gets, the more close quarter combat the weapon becomes, the closer you need to be to your enemy in order to kill them. And you'll see in future videos when we talk about other orc units who are a bit older and more mature, they have even closer weapons, all the way to the point where they just have like serrated weapons on their fists. Another thing about the orc warriors is that they are also now allowed to kind of hunt alone if they wish. So cubs hunt in groups. Firstbloods can hunt on their own, but they still have ranged weapons. And now orc hunters are specifically allowed to hunt on their own. However, hunting can be very complex and nuanced. And so each type of prey that these orcs hunt needs to be hunted differently, right? Not everything is going to require the same skills. And so within the different groups or broods of orcs, they have adapted differently depending on certain kinds of prey, and in reality kind of like their favored prey or their kind of preferred prey of the area. So the environment that the orcs live in and the organisms and the ecosystems that they live in greatly affect them. And so the first of our different styles are the brood of Borak. These are the oldest lineage of orc hunters, and they hail all the way back to a time before orcs started using weapons and armor. So they're very primitive and primal in their hunting styles. I imagine them using their tusks, their hands, using scent and all the different senses to just really get in tune with nature and hunt. Next, we have the brood of Uitak, and they value cunning and intelligence. So orcs normally are not, orcs in Warcrow are aggressive, like you might see in other orcs in other fantasy worlds, but orcs are also smart, and they know how to use the battlefield to their advantage. And the brood of Uitak use it even more because they hunt large beasts. In the Northern Tribes lore, they talk about like mega beasts and stuff, so I imagine it's like these giant creatures. And these large beasts cannot be killed with brute force alone. You need to have different skills and intelligence to fight them. I honestly kind of picture like Monster Hunter world, right? Where it's like you have to kind of go in with a plan, know how the creature fights, use different salves and ointments and different types of poisons and stuff like that to fight and to help you fight these creatures. Next is the brood of Amagur. They have a deep connections with beasts, and they see them as brothers and hunting companions. This is actually where the first of the Warg Riders came from, which we now see widely used in orc culture. Next, we have the brood of Madna. They are really interesting. If you remember, cubs are around 10 years old when they start to become warriors, when they start to fight and stuff. But in this brood, they abandon their offspring to the frozen wastes, to the tundra, at a very early age. It says when they're barely able to hold weapons. And they are required to survive for 3 months. So it's pretty brutal. But the cubs of this particular brood are considered much stronger and actually look way more mature than they are. So it creates, while very harsh, the results speak for themselves. And they're very, very tough and strong orcs within this brood. Next is the brood of Firgar. They know a secret ritual which allows them to create some sort of like arcane war paint that gives them the ability to nullify magic. So they'll paint themselves with this war paint, and I'm assuming it's like an anti-magic field, which is great because it helps them hunt their favorite prey, which are elves. And they protect the secret to this war paint with their lives. It's very closely guarded to them. Next is the brood of Nakuk. These orcs craft weapons from the shell of a terrifying six-limbed creature known as a guovza. And I don't really know what this is, but it sounds very cool, and I'm assuming another one of these big creatures. And the weapons that they make from the shell of this beast are strong enough to pierce through the toughest armor, which is really great when you are really aggressive and you want to break down your adversary before they can even know what's going on. Next, we have the brood of Guolga. This brood lives in the hospitable lands known as the Firelands with a lot of sulfur deposits, and they eat a fruit called rock fruit, which grows on the inside of volcanic craters. And because they consume this fruit, it turns their skin gray and cracked, and it also makes their skin as hard as stone. So this kind of helps them be really resilient in a very hospitable land. Because I can only imagine organisms that have adapted to this ecosystem are also very, very tough. Next, we have the brood of Utakyuk. And these orcs are really good at their anger management, right? Classically, orcs are very angry and they use that. And in Warcrow, it's the same. The orcs are very angry. While still smart, they use their rage and their anger. But this specific brood has learned how to be very patient and be more ambush-type predators. And this has allowed them to have very exceptional evokers because they're very patient spellcasters. And this has occurred because they hunt a fowl, a bird creature known as a beacon. And I'm assuming, right, kind of how did this happen? How are they so patient? It's probably because this organism is very, very vigilant, right? Is very good at perceiving hunters and predators. So they needed to be really, really good. So I imagine these orcs sitting for possibly hours, if not days, waiting for their prey. Last but not least is the brood of Abbo. This brood hunts the only prey that for the longest time was kind of considered taboo or prohibited to hunt, which is orcs. These are kind of the bad boys, quote unquote. Or at least they are the opposition to Alborg and the northern tribes themselves. Within the kind of lore, it says that Trauma hates Alborg and has declared open season on any orcs who have joined Alborg and his orcs, and then the Varank, and have gone south. And if you aren't too familiar with the northern tribes is a collection of orcs and a collection of Varank who have traveled south and are now interacting with kind of the main kind of continent where Warcrow is taking place right now. But there are other orcs. It's a little confusing though, because at least for me, because in the lore books it says Trauma is a fort, but it also says that there's a big orc that lives there. So I'm assuming that maybe the fort and the orc are named Trauma. But it's also confusing because when I'm reading about the brood of Abbo, it says that an orc named Agate is the leader or the chief of the orcs of Abbo. It's a little confusing, but I'm really interested in this brood. So why are the Orc Hunters cool? Well, first, the Northern Tribes are my main faction. I've been playing them since the launch of Warcrow. I love the Hegemony, but when they came out, when the Winds from the North came out, everybody wanted to play Hegemony in my area, and so I just kind of happened to play the Orcs, and I ended up really falling in love with them. So I just really, they're near and dear to my heart. The Orc Hunters were some of the first models I painted in Warcrow. I like that the orcs with more experience get better close quarter combat weapons. I'm also really interested in the First Bloods, Cubs, and Impalers because we don't really have models or even images of kind of how they look. I don't know if we'll have minis of them, especially like the Cubs, because it's like adolescent children. Or do we have them in a wargame or not? I don't know. But the Impaler is very, very interesting to me because that is a veteran adult orc. So really cool. And I like the diversity of the broods. The brood of Abbo is really fascinating to me. If you read the lore book, throughout the entirety of it, they are consistently opposition to Alborg, who is the leader of our Northern Tribes orcs. And I'm really hoping they become some sort of playable faction or sub-faction. And I feel like they've kind of hinted at that because Alborg is going south with the Northern Tribes because he's running from something, or they're moving away from something, and these Abbo orcs are staying. So I don't know. I'm really interested. I'm going to talk more about the Abbo orcs in the Alborg video as well. So subscribe and follow for that. If you are interested in any other lore for Warcrow, just let me know. But with that, this lore video about the Orc Hunters comes to an end. Don't forget to follow this channel to get more Warcrow lore. And if you survive the fog, I'll see you in the next video.